Egg prices are up 53% in the past year and are expected to rise another 41%.
The price of eggs is coming down, and we believe that is in reaction. The market has reacted to our plan.
So what is the truth? Is prices of eggs going up or is it coming down? Welcome to another edition of Spark the Conversation. This is your host, Mark the Spark, bringing you today's news. We're going to talk about the deportation of a Columbia student who's on a green card visa here. We're going to talk about the prison strike out of New York, how that the governor is totally out of control, the press conference today at the White House, and some more stuff on the economy and the price of eggs. Here we go. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, leave a comment, share with a friend. Let's get into it. So we got to talk about the economy because there's so many different things going around. The left is saying there was a great economy when Biden left. And of course, they were proclaiming that at the time too, that it was a great economy. And you got people on the right saying that it was an overheated economy. It had to come down. There was no way that it could maintain this level for a long period of time without some kind of pullback. And most economists do agree that it was overheated. The price of the stock market was overinflated by the actions that the Biden administration took. They pumped a ton of money into the economy. There was no way that goods could have maintained the level, the amount of goods could maintain the level of money that was pumped in the economy, right? So where there's a lot of money but not enough goods is where you get an overheated economy, which is what we were experiencing in this last year, where stock prices seemed like they were doing well, but anecdotally, and you could look right around it at the inflation. So both anecdotally and by the data, you could see that clearly the economy was in for a world of hurt. So Donald Trump came in and he promised to make things better on day one. I think that what he was meaning by that, and I'm going to come to his defense here, is that he was going to put things in place, the common sense practices and policies needed to start the economy headed in the right direction. And that is exactly what he did. He put people who knew what they were doing in charge, and that started the process of the changes that needed to come right after that. So now we got to talk about the difference in the way the left and the right are talking about things. We saw a clip in an opening about the price of eggs, which that's what people keep going to. And you can't just look at one item like that and decide that that's how you're going to base the whole economy, because we know that there was a pretty big avian bird flu that killed off or caused farmers to intentionally kill off a lot of the chickens that were laying these eggs. So that one product could be affected by something that not necessarily affecting the whole economy. But it is a good basis to look at one item and say, oh, let's just look at the price, 2 years ago, the price 1 year ago, and the price now, and see where it changes. And this is kind of a differential in this clip between how the left talks about it and how the right talks about it.
Egg prices are up 53% in the past year and are expected to rise another 41% this year.
Lord. This is why Joe Biden and
didn't Donald Trump
Kamala was unpopular and why Kamala Harris lost.
I thought Trump's
egg prices. The eggs are too damn high.
Still ahead, New York Times reporter Tyler Pager joins us
confused
with his new
Price of eggs is coming down, and we believe that is in reaction. The market has reacted to our plan that we rolled out on February 26th, just about a week and a half ago, that the prices have come down on average about $1.85 per dozen eggs. So Biden administration, this was a major problem that they had 2 years ago. They talked about it. They wrote some plans about it, and then nothing ever happened. So I think that it's really important to know, and for your viewers, that we are on it.
So there's the important change in the administration's tone, where this administration has accepted the fact that prices are high and that there are things at play in the economy that are driving prices up, and the pace of people's income is not keeping up with it. And so that is a differential in the messaging between the two administrations. Now, Donald Trump's administration has an easy out in being able to point at the Biden administration's handling of the economy, which was clear to see. Janet Yellen, her handling of the economy was basically saying, oh, inflation's transitory. We'll just pump more money into it and that'll fix it. It's like, no, that's why the problem existed in the first place. You pumped too much money into the economy and there wasn't enough goods, especially with the shutting down of businesses during COVID. There definitely weren't enough goods to keep up with the amount of money pumped in the economy. Here's the leftist media talking about how Trump was handed a strong economy, which is their belief, but is lunatic thinking.
Bidenomics. Polls consistently show that a majority of the American people disapprove of the president's handling of the economy.
Eviction filing rates are soaring, 50% higher than they were before the pandemic.
Over half of Americans earning a six-figure salary report that they're actually living paycheck to paycheck.
Tens and tens of millions of people are struggling to put food on the table.
The number of homeless people on the streets and in shelters across the U.S. increased significantly this year.
Biden trying to rev up his economic vision for America, but a lot of people aren't buying it because they can't literally buy anything.
I'm so sick of how expensive everything is. I don't know how anyone else is surviving out here.
Bidenomics, Biden's formula for strong economic growth from the bottom up. It's so much greater than even the experts in economic stuff expected it to be.
How are you feeling tonight? Are you feeling confident tonight? The Biden administration is crediting Bidenomics.
The economy is great. It's the Goldilocks economy. I don't recall an economy that is this good.
Our economy is doing so well.
But guess what? It's working.
Bidenomics is working.
Bidenomics is working. It is actually working.
My God, it really is morning in America right now.
From your lips, Cornell.
Bidenomics is changing their lives for the better.
Most economists fear the most that the United States economy is too strong.
Well, that's enough of that because they're completely delusional. This is the kind of stuff we had to deal with for the past year, is the leftist media trying to say, you know, their main goal is repeat it enough times and everybody will believe it. And, you know, to some extent it's true. But when you have something that is, you know, affected like grocery prices that people see every single day, they go to the store and they say, wow, I know what the price of this was yesterday. I know what the price of this was last week. I know what my budget was for groceries 2 weeks ago and last month. And then they have to see more and more money coming out of their pocket to go towards these things. It is hard for the media to hypnotize them into believing that the economy is strong. I mean, it is just too clear, too in their face to change someone's perspective on this just by repeating it over and over again. But that is what we dealt with for the last year. But now we have a different party in office, right? And the leftist media, of course, has to find any way to blame somebody who's only been in the presidency for 5 weeks for the economy, when they would be the first ones to point towards the last 4 years if it was a change in the other direction. And we obviously know that. But they cannot stick to reality. They just go with their beliefs and how they feel and what they think should be true. And their job is just to convince you of what you should believe. But anyways, we have a different viewpoint on CNN explaining the reality of the economy out of Bidenomics.
4 years of the Biden-Harris administration where the deficit went up, debt went up, the cost of living went up, the cost of groceries went up, the cost of child care went up. Every single sector you could look at that you could measure economically went up. It's not as if Donald Trump was handed this amazing, incredible economy that he's now all of a sudden destroying. We, Republicans, are going to have to fix what Democrats completely destroyed over 4 years. So I don't think you can blame Republicans for what we're seeing.
No, I don't think that the economy was destabilized as you paint it. What I will say, though, is that the economy is not getting better. It's not even staying the same. It is the things that were promised to us are not. They are changing, and they're changing for the worse. And then on top of it, you have a budget bill that is coming up that would make it harder for people in red states and blue states around Medicaid, around Medicare, around Social Security, those social safety net programs that really do stabilize the middle class. And I hear you that people felt like we got it wrong. Democrats got it wrong. But y'all aren't getting it right now either.
It's been 1 month. Dips happen.
Day one.
It's been 1 month. Dips
one.
happen all the time. And I'm not
weeks.
trying to ignore the
Day
reality of working class people, but I think as it pertains to understanding the economy, understanding stock markets, anybody who invests in this stuff will tell you this occasionally occurs. I'm not freaking out about this. And again, the people who manage these portfolios that you mentioned aren't necessarily freaking out about it.
And you see how smug her response is when saying day one. That's all they have. That's all they have is say Trump was going to fix this on day one. He promised he was going to have this on day one. If you guys believed it, you would have voted for him too. Okay. But what his point was not that he was going to fix it on day one. It wasn't going to magically change. Everybody knew that. That's ridiculous to even believe. He was going to start the process in using common sense, in getting actual meritocracy restored into these positions who are in charge of, pushing the economy in the right direction, making good decisions that help our government and help this country to flourish. He was going to start that on day one, and that's what he meant. Now, some of people are getting all their panties in a bundle now because he was on an interview the other day and wouldn't rule out a recession coming up. Here's a clip of that.
And I want to ask you about Ukraine and the blow up the other day with Zelensky. Let me stay on the economy for a moment because there are rising worries about a slowdown. You've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a contraction in the first quarter. Look, I know that you inherited a mess and you said that the other night.
I've only been here,
but are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great. It's going to be great ultimately for the farmer. Don't forget,
But here's him in a press conference today where they were talking about Elon Musk investing more in Tesla in the United States. Here's him talking about the economy in a different light.
What do you think of it, Margot? Do you like the idea?
I love it.
Okay, good.
We're going to have fun.
They're very happy.
Mr. President, your comments the other day not ruling out a potential recession seemed to rattle the stock markets. The Commerce Secretary said there wouldn't be one.
Boom. Just so you know.
Just specifically on the recession.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a recession?
I don't see it at all. I think this country is going to boom. But as I said, I can do it the easy way or the hard way. The hard way to do it is exactly what I'm doing, but the results are going to be 20 times greater.
And so he's reassuring the public there, talking about the effects that the decisions he's going to make are going to have in the long term. And, I think a lot of this is the long-term game. And I think I've said this all along, that if Trump's going to make moves that's going to hurt the economy short term, which we ultimately knew needed to happen at some point because it was overheated. And if he was going to do that, he needs to do that early in his presidency because no one's going to remember it a year from now, even 2 years from now. If we have a rough time in the economy now, in order to have a better, stronger economy in the long term, nobody will remember what happened in the first month, the first 5 weeks, even the first year, if the end result is a strong, booming economy. Nobody will remember it. And so I think that is what's at play right now. There's going to be a lot of volatility, and there always will be in a downturn in the market and in recession trends. But long term is what the goal is. When you invest in the market, it's a long-term investment, and that is what Trump's doing here. So here's Caroline Leavitt in a press conference had today where they covered all kinds of things, including the economy, tariffs, and other stuff. I'm just going to clip through it so you guys can see a little bit of what they talked about.
Later today, President Trump will address the Business Roundtable's quarterly meeting. This follows President Trump's roundtable yesterday with the Technology CEO Council here at the White House, where he met with key leaders in the technology industry. The Senate has now confirmed 21 of President Trump's well-qualified cabinet-level nominees, far outpacing the previous administration. On the economy, February's jobs report was good news for America, particularly our manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector gained 10,000 new jobs in just 1 month under President Trump. This rebound was led by the automobile sector, where we saw 9,000 new auto jobs created already, Reuters is out with a report that a number of companies are now looking at expanding their presence or bringing their businesses into America because of President Trump's policies. And just moments ago, before coming out here, I saw another report by Reuters revealing that Merck has opened a $1 billion facility at its North Carolina site. And despite the globalist mainstream media's attempts to worry consumers, President Trump will not repeat the trend of past American presidents who broke their promises to the American public and smiled while they stuck a knife in the back of American workers and shipped their jobs overseas. On another very important issue for the president, he continues to work hard to secure the border. If you missed it yesterday, CBP launched an enhanced home mobile app with a new feature, the Intent to Depart, which offers unlawfully present aliens or those aliens whose parole has been revoked an orderly and defined process to notify the U.S. government of their intent to depart the country. That illegal border crossings plummeted last month as well, down 94% at our southern border from last February under the Biden administration. And that is why the president fully endorses the continuing resolution that is before Congress and was negotiated by Speaker Johnson. He is encouraging all Republicans to vote yes on this clean CR, which freezes funding at current levels and will prevent the Democrats from getting their long-awaited government shutdown. Voting against this CR will hurt the American people and kill the incredible momentum that President Trump has built over the past 51 days. And lastly, before I take questions, I would like to commend the Washington Post, who I believe is in the room today. According to a new report from Axios, the Washington Post is overhauling their newsroom structure. It appears that the mainstream media, including the Post, is finally learning that having disdain for more than half of the country who supports this president does not help you sell newspapers. It's not a very good business model. And that's why we have people in our new media seat. And today we have Sargar Anetti, who is the host of Breaking Points, a popular political YouTube news and podcast show that has racked up nearly 1 billion views on YouTube, several hundred million podcast downloads since its launch in June 2021. He's also a former member of the White House Correspondents Association, but is now a part of the thriving independent media. We're very happy to have you with us here today. Why don't you kick off our briefing? Thank you.
Really appreciate you having me, Caroline. A couple of questions for you, if I may. First on the stock market. So currently it's the 25th anniversary today of the dot-com bubble crash. There's a lot of concern for a lot of Americans right now about the state of the economy. President Trump has refused to rule out a recession. Secretary Lutnick, however, has told us there will not be one. So can the White House just tell and assure Americans today that there's not going to be a recession?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there. So let me start by saying that, first of all, when it comes to the stock market, the numbers that we see today, the numbers we saw yesterday, the numbers we'll see tomorrow are a snapshot of a moment in time. And as President Trump has said, and I'm here to echo the remarks of this president of this White House, we are in a period of economic transition. We are in a period of transition from the mess that was created under Joe Biden in the previous administration.
So President Trump came out today in a primary challenge against Congressman Thomas Massie. Congressman Massie's been a supporter of DOGE. He's been a supporter of Make America Healthy Again. What kind of message is this White House sending against a congressman who's sticking up for principles that he's long held in the chamber and voting against continuing resolution and spending?
I think the president has made it very clear that he believes it's critical for conservatives and Republicans and frankly all members of Congress to get behind this continuing resolution to keep the government funded. The president wants to continue the momentum that he has built.
Egregious and insulting are your words here, but that's what many Canadian leaders have said about the actions President Trump has taken toward Canada. And what do you think the timeline is for speaking to Mr. Carney? Because normally a sitting president speaks to a close ally very quickly when there's new leadership.
Well, the president is, again, responding to the fact that Canada has been ripping off the United States of America and hardworking Americans for decades. If you look at the rates of tariffs across the board that Canadians have been imposing on the American people and our workers here, it is egregious. In fact, I have a handy-dandy chart here that shows not just Canada, but the rate of tariffs across the board. If you look at Canada, since you brought it up, American cheese and butter, nearly 300% tariff. You look at India, 150% tariff on American alcohol. You think that's helping Kentucky bourbon be exported into India? I don't think so. 100% tariff on agricultural products from India. Look at Japan tariffing rice 700%. President Trump believes in reciprocity, and it is about dang time that we have a president who actually looks out for the interests of American businesses and workers.
Well, there was a lot there that she covered, and there's a lot more that I clipped out with the question and answer session. But the key factors are that the Trump administration has hit the ground running. They are hitting the things that are important to the American public. And you know, when she covered tariffs at the end there, which is very interesting to show the numbers, that Donald Trump is trying to hit a lot of different angles with these tariffs. But ultimately, you can put it all into one collective ball where it is just using negotiation tactics in order to get fair trade, get people to get countries to enforce borders, that especially the ones that are right on the border with the United States, and to use our financial power in order to better the United States. And that is ultimately the final goal. Now, when we talk about this character, this came up in the press conference too, so I'm going to play that clip after this little rundown. But this Mahmoud Khalil, who is basically a Hamas supporter at Columbia University, he has supported terrorism, both, I'm sure, financially and just verbally. And the key factor is he's not an American citizen. And that is a key point because he does not get the same rights protected as a United States citizen would. And if you're not going to do things that are for the good of the United States under a green card or a visa, then there is the ability to deport you. And Carolyn Levitt explains that.
Mahmoud Khalil, does the administration believe that it needs to charge a green card holder with a crime to be eligible for deportation?
Well, in fact, Secretary Rubio reserves the right to revoke the visa of Mahmoud Khalil, and I'm glad you brought this up. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, the Secretary of State has the right to revoke a green card or a visa for individuals who serve or are adversarial to the foreign policy and national security interests of the United States of America.
And she made some really good points about the rights the United States has to deport people who don't further the interests of the United States. So just in case you're not sure of what this guy does and what he's been involved in, here's a little clip of some of the activism that he's been doing while he's in the United States. Tell me if this is something that you think that we should be allowing to stay here when he's not a citizen.
For our resistance in Gaza, make some noise!
And here's some further discussion from other media sources about Mahmoud Khalil.
Breaking news, immigration agents arresting a Palestinian activist at Columbia University.
Now this comes as the Trump administration is threatening to revoke green cards and visas of those who support Hamas.
After months of reporting on Columbia University's pro-terror ecosystem, Canary Mission deepened its research, uncovering 6 foreign nationals who could qualify under President Trump's executive order called Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. Number 1, Mahmoud Khalil. Khalil is an international graduate student born and raised in Syria. In 2023, he interned at UNRWA, the UN organization defunded by the US government for its affiliation with Hamas. During the encampment, Khalil acted as lead negotiator for the pro-terror student group Columbia University Apartheid Divest. On March 9, 2025, Khalil was arrested by ICE.
A spokesperson with the Department of Homeland Security released a statement. They claim he, quote, led activities aligned to Hamas, a designated terrorist organization.
And here's our favorite, CNN's Scott Jennings, leading a discussion on that panel about why this guy should be deported.
He's a resident alien. He can be deported under U.S. law for if the Secretary of State has any reasonable ground to believe he would have a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence. And you mentioned the student organization. The student organization put out...
Let me finish. But before you move on, because I think that's a really important point, right? That's the statute that they're using.
Yeah.
Have you seen any evidence to suggest that there is actually a serious reason to believe that this student is going to be a threat to national security?
I mean, I've certainly watched the abomination that's gone on at Columbia and Barnard and other places. And I will just
so
tell
a
you,
threat to national security.
and I'll just tell you
No,
that his
I'm not going to let you move on because this is the
I'll tell you why it's a threat
Scott.
to national security if you let me answer you.
Well, Scott.
Do you want me to answer you or not?
Okay.
His organization says we are dedicated fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization.
Okay.
He's not a citizen. He doesn't need to be here.
You just described him having viewpoints that you disagree with. Again, is that enough to have someone lose their rights in this country?
He has viewpoints that, in my opinion, jeopardize the security of the United States.
But how?
He is obviously a radical who is here to foment.
No, he's not a radical at all. He's
violence against the United States government.
He wants to destroy Western
civilization.
civilization.
Against the United States government.
You're saying eradicate Western civilization doesn't make you a radical?
Has he acted in any way that is
I think
violence against the United States government, as you just said?
I think these protests and the violence they have fomented and the intimidation and fear against the Jewish kids on these campuses is absolutely an act of insurrection against the United States. Okay, well, guess what? He is not a citizen. If he were a citizen, I might feel differently. He's a guest in this country.
Okay.
It's my view,
so in other
and
words,
it's the Trump administration.
It's the but it doesn't matter.
No, I didn't walk in here with my gumshoe investigative case, Abby. But here's what I do think: this guy's running an organization at Columbia that has ruined 2 solid years of people's lives.
So I'm going to have to wrap things up here pretty soon, but I just wanted to cover one more story. New York's update on the prison guard strike. Most of the prison guards have returned back to work under conditions that really are not any better than what they left, unfortunately. But the People's Republic of New York has basically used its strong arm to basically force these people back, and now has come down with strict penalties on those who did not return to work, and I believe are completely illegal and unconstitutional. Hopefully they will go down flaming, like a flaming ball of fire in court. But here's a little clip about that.
Governor Hochul signed an executive order today establishing a policy barring the hiring of any individual continuing to strike into state positions. She has also recommended their removal from the registry of police and peace officers for cause, preventing them from being hired as a police or peace officer in New York State, both at the state and local levels. For now, the National Guard will remain in some supporting roles at the facilities. Doc says there will also be an aggressive recruiting effort to strengthen the department.
Anyways, that's all I have time for today. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Hope to see you back tomorrow. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment below, share with a friend, and as always, go out and volunteer for something meaningful and spark the conversation.